What's up, everybody, and welcome to episode 3 of the Late Round Fantasy Football Show. Got a lot of fun stuff to talk about. We're going to get down and nerdy, like we talked about last week, and really, JJ has been in the spreadsheets so much that sometimes he doesn't even know what he's creating. But we do have some fun stuff to talk about that's nerdy, and year 2 values is the theme of today's show. Some names you're going to recognize if you listen to any of JJ's stuff this year. Some names might surprise you. So stick around. It's a Late Round Fantasy Football Show sponsored by DraftKings. All right, welcome in, everyone. David Kitchen here, a.k.a. COO, a.k.a. JJ's number 2. And JJ, welcome.
Aren't you technically my number 1?
Maybe.
I think you would be unless you're counting like my wife or something. That's the one, and you're above the children.
Not trying to compete with family.
Trying to compete with CJ over here. My God. Good Lord. I think you can say you're my number 1. That's fine. You're my number 1.
Got it.
Yeah. So you feel, or you could just continue the bit and just say that you're my number 2 as if there's like another force pulling things, behind the scenes at Late Round Fantasy Football.
Okay. JJ, I'm just gonna apologize right off the bat because John Pro said error ref, and then I'm like, funny, and then realized that I did not change the title on this slide, which is not what he's talking about. But I didn't change the title on the little overlay. So people still think it's episode 2.
Oh, wow. You're fired.
Yeah. Maybe I can just do it real quickly and you can put it in there.
While I'm talking. Yeah.
Yeah. While you're doing today's data, you can have it. This is an interactive show, though. So we welcome everyone to comment either during the show or after the show. Got some comments to read in a second. Want to give a shout out to our wonderful sponsors, DraftKings. All customers get the draft one, get one to play free for a share of $15 million. We have it in the show notes as far as where you can click to get that. So $20 entry into a $15 million best ball contest. Get you another bonus ticket, basically. If you are a Patreon member, you have JJ's rankings. He updated those recently and then re-updated those. So those are good to go. And we appreciate those folks over there at DK. People are having fun drafting on DraftKings.
Yeah, it's been, I've really enjoyed it. And I'm not just saying that because we're sponsored by them. I genuinely like, I like that there's a lot more like up in the air stuff going on with ADP over there compared to like an Underdog. And like you can just like really gobble up values and do what you want a little bit more. I think what that's going to mean, Kitchen, is that my end of season portfolio, I'm going to be more overweight than I was last year on players. Like last year, when I wasn't playing as much DK, I was very much kind of flatlined with my exposure to different guys. I think that's almost impossible given the way the market is set up on DK, which I love because then you have, more obvious players that you're rooting for and stuff. Like I keep drafting Austin Eckler right now, for instance, right?
Yeah.
Like it's very hard for me to not. And that's why it was great on becoming a best ball bro that Neil brought him up because that I've brought up Eckler when we've talked about it. And like when you get that synergy with other analysts and stuff, it's always a good thing. So I do think that's going to end up happening with DK this summer, but I've liked it. We're going to be doing live streams starting next week. I know that I think I mentioned it on last week's show that I'd be doing it this week, but I have a shortened week. This is my Friday today. I have a shortened week, so it's just a little bit more difficult to squeeze that in.
Yeah, and also I think that we'll see players. We've already seen it. Like I've already seen Eckler's ranking start basically shrinking down more. Like that.
With B-Rob?
Huge. What's that?
You mean like the gap between him and B-Rob?
Right, the gap and just his ADP. So like, when he was 30 spots ahead in your rankings compared to ADP, now he's not that.
It's not nearly as significant.
Right. So I think naturally you're going to change that way anyways. All right. Guides on sale. JJ, 26 days until the draft guide releases. How much do you love this counter?
I don't think people realize
Yeah.
how much, like, I'm messaging you, Kitchen, at like my time, like 11:30, almost like every night, talking about something that's going on in the draft guide and whatnot. Like, the month of June should be a really downtime for a fantasy analyst because there's really nothing going on in the NFL calendar. But I've decided to use the month of June to slave away on this draft guide every year, and it's a lot. This year, I try to really change it up every year because people deserve a fresh, look at all this stuff. So I basically rewrite the whole thing. There's some stuff that I, will copy over, but like finding trends and looking at trends, I'm using AI a lot more this year, which has been really fun. And it's been really fun from like a discoverability standpoint, but it's been really helpful for like productivity when I actually find that thing that but the discoverability side, I'm just constantly like asking questions and trying to figure stuff out. And that takes that time away. But some new discoveries and stuff that I'll talk a little bit about today and tease a little bit of what I'm going to talk about next week on the podcast. But, the draft guide, it being 26 days away, and I have many long weekends planned in the month of June. It is frightening. It is frightening. Yeah.
I'm not trying to make you more anxious. AI does help us, but it also sends us down rabbit holes sometimes. And you are a victim of that.
Yes. When you have so much, like,
look at all this data that AI is now. It's like it's a new playground. You found a new pickleball court to play in with new players.
Exactly. It's like when you're little and you go and you find a playground with your parents, and you find one that's one of those like wooden castle playgrounds. Remember those growing up where you get splinters all the time, but they were awesome.
Do I? Yes.
And you could ride the pirate ships and stuff, and like it's like you found one of those where they had like trap doors and stuff like that. That's what I feel like. I found one of those playgrounds with using AI with this stuff, because I have spreadsheets and stuff that I've really been, I've been clean with my data through the years. And I have all these spreadsheets that it's almost impossible for a human to just like test everything very quickly. And with AI, it's at least speeding up that process a lot. So I'm testing metrics that I haven't really tested before for different ADP buckets and stuff. And it's just opening my eyes to a lot of different possibilities with, draft strategy.
Okay, just again, leave your comments. Please like and subscribe. Let's get to over 200 likes on this episode. Can we do that? Can people help us out here, please? Yeasty Boy 420 said, "Great show. Would be awesome if you sent these spreadsheets out to Patreon subs at the end of each week for more content that I can consume." Something we've talked about, JJ. Something we should continue to talk about.
I think you should put it. Let's just flesh this out right here. I think that you should put it in the weekly newsletter
for everyone to consume.
Yeah.
Okay.
Everyone consumes it. You could put it in there, and that way people are subscribing to the newsletter, which obviously we want people to subscribe to the newsletter.
Yeah.
Another reason to do so. And then because we talk about the late round show every week on the newsletter, and you could link it to that, and then people can see all the ridiculousness that we're talking about on here.
Done. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Frankie Paleo, friend of the show, says it's scary how Kitchen's brains work. In his mind, Dumb and Dumber equals Marshawn Lloyd.
Yeah, I now since January 2nd, I've lived it every day of my life. It's scary, guys. It's scary.
JJ and my wife now have basically therapy sessions.
When we all get together one day.
JJ can't understand my context when I say things.
No one can.
Yes, they can.
No.
Ankur Diora says, "Great work as always." I just want to throw that in there just so we could fill our words of affirmation buckets up. And then Anna Gray says, "Love these shows. Thanks for a shout out with my Coco Amino's comment. One question request: would it be possible to use timestamps like you did for the first episode last week? Makes it easier to go back and look at a certain segment that I enjoyed and want to replay." Anna, yes. For you, yes. We will do timestamps from now on.
Boom.
Great idea. All right. So honestly, just more free stuff for the people, because that's why we're here, JJ. You ready for this?
Yeah, I haven't looked at any of the news items, so I'm excited to see how ridiculous your headlines are and see these stretches like the Dumb and Dumber one from last week.
Okay, and look at the overlay too. Did that. Bang.
Oh, wow. Look at that.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right. You're hired again.
Back to being hired. All right. Employment feels good. Let's go to the news. You're going to hear me roar or nods. What do you think this is about?
Travis Etienne.
No. Lions.
I mean, it makes sense. I just saw. Okay, I was looking at the color through our screen, but then whenever I look at the spreadsheet, it's a different. It's more the Lions color.
Yeah. JJ. This might not be good for Grandma Golf, as we like to call him now in the Discord. But Frank Ragnow retired from the NFL. He's not even 30 yet. All pro center.
Yeah.
Grandma Golf is your reaction.
No, that's what. So people who are not aware, I had a situation at my son's daycare that I opened up becoming a best ball bro with the other day. And I got to say, I came up with the story, obviously, because it happened to me. And I said it on the show at the cold open. And I realized I don't have a way to really close this and like give you a punchline. And so Rich Ryan, my co-host, who heard that story for the first time as I was saying it, he was like, hey, say something along the lines of like, you looked past and I'm like, yeah, like I looked past and I, the same way that I'm looking past Jared Goff in season long. So Rich is really the inspiration behind it, which means anyone who wants to say anything negative about the Grandma Goff notion can point it to Rich and not me.
Yeah, that's Rich's negativity. All right. More. Alex Brasky posted Tre'Davious White unprompted on New Bills wide receiver Elijah Moore. He's going to be a big-time player for us. Route running is amazing. Getting in and out his breaks is amazing. # Bills Mafia. JJ?
I mean, look, I've always been an Elijah Moore guy, and I actually backed your Elijah Moore take earlier this offseason where Davis and Pete kind of brushed it off and called you a moron, which is a very consistent theme on the Swolecast. I actually don't think that it's like a terrible notion and take. The thing that's interesting to me is that the Bills sort of have the New York Giants, or at least, the New York Giants from like 2021 to 2024 before they drafted Malik Neighbors, where they would just like gobble up as many slot receivers as they can. Maybe it's like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers right now. They've been doing the same thing with, Jalen McMillan and then Emeka Egbuka. I think Egbuka can play on the perimeter though. But Elijah Moore profiled as a slot guy coming out of college, and he was a slot guy in college. And then he goes in his rookie season, he played only like 35% of it, had only like 35% of his routes or something. This is off the top of my head, so you can fact.
No, we're going to hold you to it.
Yeah. It was like 35% or something slot rate in his first year, and he was really good his rookie season. That's why everyone was so high on him. So I actually think there's a chance that he could play some in the perimeter, because remember, they locked up Khalil Shakir, and that's been a problem, I think, to a degree for Keon Coleman, who's more of that like what Harmon would call power slot that he sort of typecasted Keon Coleman as being. I think that Khalil Shakir being there would hurt Coleman from that perspective. Elijah Moore can play on the outside. They have Josh Palmer there now, who I think is actually a pretty decent best ball pick at the moment, just because, he can provide some spiked weeks in that offense. But if they have some sort of rotation there, I wouldn't be surprised if Elijah Moore is getting some work and some love. Like, I don't think he's that bad of a player still.
Okay. Type in your reaction. And while you do that, more like D'Amico Lions, am I right? Do you know what this is about? I don't know.
Oh, CJ Stroud. Is that what it is?
If you saw the Coach Speak Index clip of D'Amico Ryans, he was asked whether CJ Stroud had any work on his shoulder in the offseason.
Yeah.
And if you listen to that clip, it was like when you get in trouble for something, and like you're trying to get out of it and you're just doing a terrible job. That's what he sounded like.
Yeah. I don't think it's that big of a deal.
Okay.
From what some of the Twitter docs have said. I'm not overly concerned.
There you go. So you're already like paying attention to what the Twitter docs are saying.
Yeah, I mean, like there's some guys, off-season stuff like Stephon Diggs, he's ahead of schedule apparently, and I want to see how real that kind of thing is, and some of them have been pretty bullish about it.
So this is like when you're paying attention to the injury stuff as you're writing the guide and stuff, are you getting more in tune with like the injury stuff as July 1st is hanging around, or do you just let stuff play out?
I kind of let it play out. Like I'm not one that's going to really make a bet one way or another on a guy in May and June. Like I've taken, my rankings were unfortunately a little bit too high on Diggs in May and into, over the, until I made that update in June. So I have some Diggs, in best ball and whatnot, but I've slowed that down. We talked about it, on the show, but like I have a ton of like Kyle Williams and stuff. And a lot of the Diggs stuff is more so I just like the Patriots as a bounce back offense. But when it comes to the guys who are banged up, I'm trying to not be like overweight or even necessarily underweight. Because right now, if you are, getting some of those pieces, there's a chance that they rise pretty dramatically in, like Ayuk, for instance. Like if Brandon Ayuk ends up playing week 1, you are getting a massive discount right now where he's being drafted. So I'm okay with it. I just don't want to be overweight on Ayuk right now.
I love how we're getting people guessing what the news items mean. Yeah. The next one is Dobbins to Denver. I was going to butcher Estime's last name and say S-Time. JK. It's not time. But J.K. Dobbins visiting Denver. Is there anything better than a 4-headed running back monster in Denver after all the RG Harvey love and everything else?
First off, as we know, with all headlines, newspaper headlines and stuff, they make sure that the audience absolutely knows exactly how you should pronounce it as you read it, with S-Time versus Estime.
Right.
The weird thing with the J.K. Dobbins stuff is, let's say he signs in Denver. Most teams carry 3 running backs on a given day, on a given game day. And so there's going to be a guy who's left out, right? So my big thing is here is who's left out, right? Where what are you changing this?
No, keep going. Okay. Just keep going.
Okay. My big question is who's left out, because they've seemed to like Jaleel McLaughlin enough as like a change of pace guy. Sean Payton was pumping up Audric Estime through the media the other day, and there's really no reason to do that. Like they can't trade him. Like no one's going to take on Estime. Like what's the reason of like saying that he could do more on the ground? It's and be a good, like he showed good things as a rookie or whatever the heck he was saying about him. And so my big thing is like, who would be the odd man out if J.K. Dobbins is there? Probably Jaleel McLaughlin, I think, over, would maybe be the guy who would be out from like a game day perspective. I don't know. I don't, it's not going to really change the way that I view an RJ Harvey, because RJ Harvey doesn't project to be like a bell cow right now. You're drafting him because the environment's really good. There's a lot of receiving work that can go his way. Might ding him a little bit, but I think that the drop in ADP for RJ Harvey, if J.K. Dobbins were to sign, is bigger than the drop in projection, right? And the drop in what we would expect from Harvey. So I'd still be in on Harvey. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know how they'd envision how that would all go down, because, maybe it would be Estime because they just want that like early down bruiser. I think a lot of people though have sort of like put Jaleel McLaughlin in this archetype bucket of being this like change of pace pass catcher, but he's not really a pass catcher. He hasn't seen an 8% target share in the NFL yet. So I don't know why that would be the the direction. All right, here we go. What's the next one?
I'm going to, the last one was, I just had stripes because it was about a zebra here in Middle Tennessee that escaped. Did you see this?
No.
It escaped and they can't find it like 3 days later.
There was a zoo in Ohio, Zanesville, I think, where this happened when I was living in Cincinnati. So this is like more than a decade ago. And there were like legit like lions and tigers roaming the streets that they were trying to get.
Okay. Well, and then I just had Smiths, and I knew that there was going to be some better headline. It just came to me, Mr. and Mr. Smith instead of Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Jonnu Smith and Arthur Smith.
There we go.
Yeah. Arthur Smith had Jonnu in Tennessee, then in Atlanta.
Yeah.
Now he wants him in Pittsburgh.
Jonnu, I mean, look, has Arthur Smith been wrong though about the tight end stuff?
No.
Like, can people just generally give him a little bit of love for being right about the tight ends?
And guess what he was in Tennessee? The tight ends coach.
That's right.
So he might be a tight end whisperer.
Yeah. And so, Jonnu's obviously not bad, and he had the breakout that he had last year. From a fantasy perspective, this would suck. Like, we want Jonnu in Miami, but if Jonnu does leave Miami because they don't want to pay him, that's an uptick in target share for Jaylen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. I think some regression is going to hit Jonnu Smith this year naturally from like a team level perspective. Like, highly doubt their ADOT's going to be as low as it was last year. Highly doubt they pepper him with targets the same way they did last year. But regardless of all that, like if you have Tyreek Hill and Jaylen Waddle, clearly you're going to change something up, you would think, rationally, to get them the ball a little bit more than they did last year, right? So I think there's going to be some regression there. But if he went to Pittsburgh, it would just be horrible for Pat Freiermuth. It wouldn't be great for Jonnu Smith either, just because he's not going to have that potential as he does in Miami to still see a decent target share. I hope this doesn't happen. I hope it doesn't happen.
Okay.
I agree. By the way, Scott in chat, I agree with what he just said. They're building sort of like Tennessee, when they had like Tannehill, right? When they, they have that alpha, you have AJ Brown versus DK Metcalf, ironically college teammates. And then you have, a lot of like Arthur Smith will run a lot of 12, like he'll get 2 tight end sets out there. He loves to use tight ends in general. And then you have that zone game and that, or you have a powerful back there, Caleb Johnson versus Derrick Henry. It's very obvious that they're trying to do something similar there.
I was getting some notifications in Discord, and it was from our NFL News and Rumors channel. So this is breaking news. APOR. Do you know what's the opposite of APOR?
I don't know. I don't know what you're trying to go here.
A rich.
Okay.
Yeah. So yes,
clearly.
This is on the fly. People like, how does he do it? It's just what comes to me,
Yeah, how does he do it?
This is the Colts about 12:53 or 12:53 p.m. Eastern time. Per Shane Steichen, QB Anthony Richardson is dealing with a shoulder injury and will not participate in minicamp next week. L. Ron Chubbles says that it's the same AC joint injury that he had in 2023, re-aggravation. So there you go.
I think Danny Dimes is just gonna start, and like part of the thing too is that, can you imagine a world where they go with Anthony Richardson to start the year and then they bench him? They can never go back to Anthony Richardson,
right?
And this is also a team where, this is where you don't want to be as a franchise, where you have these conflicting views of the front office and coaching staff, like wanting to win now, but the team isn't necessarily built for that way immediately. So they're going to like try to do things. It's similar to like the Giants in a way where, I think part of the reason they got Jackson Dart, I don't mind Jackson Dart as a prospect, but part of the reason why they got him for sure is because I think that they thought that it would keep them around, potentially that like staff and the front office around a little bit longer. Like they might get an extra year, because if they're bad this year, they can be like, oh, well, we're developing Jackson, just give us one more year. And then with Indianapolis, it's not dissimilar. I mean, there's definitely some similarities there. And so I think that this could go south quick. Yeah.
Was listening to your best ball episode and talking about 2 versus 3 quarterbacks. Daniel Jones is one of the last quarterbacks taken. So we'll see. He, of course, now with this, he might creep up just a round or 2, but he's easy to get. In those later rounds if you need something. All right, that was the news section. Let's get on to today's data.
Yeah, so I've been doing a lot of research with the late round draft guide, and I'm bucketing things a little bit differently this year, because as a lot of you guys know, what I do is I look at ADP analysis and I look at what the market's done historically, and I've tried to figure out what the market hasn't really valued within ADP. So obviously ADP is going to predict future performance to a decent degree because we're drafting these guys for the current season, but there are things that ADP doesn't capture very well. Like for instance, at quarterback, it still doesn't capture rushing production as much as it should. And at running back, when you get to the middle rounds, RB19, RB42, which is like, like round 5 to round 9 in your drafts, historically, you get a really wide range of running back here. Whereas the early rounds, like top 18 running backs, you're getting, almost every single one of them is going to be some sort of pass catcher. If you're not Derrick Henry, or even Jonathan Taylor, they're going to be like some sort of pass catcher. And if they're not, then that's a red flag, but they're going to be some sort of pass catcher. They're going to have, a big projection. People are going to see good things from them. And there are some trends that I brought up in this year's guide that can help us spot some potential busts and guys who would exceed expectation in the early rounds. But when you get to the middle rounds, one of the things that's very glaringly obvious is this table, which is looking at how these guys finish in target share while being drafted in those middle rounds. And so I look at guys who played 8 games in their previous season and then 8 games in the current season. So obviously this would remove any rookies because they didn't have previous season data. Actually, no, for this is only looking at guys in the current season. So this would include rookies. And it's looking at how they finished in target share. That's all. And they had to play a minimum 8 games. So 59% of these middle round running backs, would not have a target share over 5%. They didn't hit a 5% target share. The next group, 104, 5 to 10%. And then 70 of them had a target share per game rate above 10%. And then you can look at their rates of exceeding ADP expectation by 2 or more points per game, 4 or more points per game, and 6 or more points per game. And the trend is unbelievable, right? Like this is as clear and clean of any sort of data that you will ever see in fantasy football, where middle round running backs who are not pass catchers, they are terrible bets versus ADP. Middle round running backs who are pass catchers, they're great bets versus ADP. The obvious reason for that is pass catching is number one, still generally will generally be undervalued by the market. But number two, pass catching is valuable just in terms of scoring. Like a target is more valuable than a rush attempt in every single format, whether you're looking at standard, half PPR, or full PPR. The thing that I am trying to answer this year, and I'm going to be doing a podcast episode on this on Tuesday or for Tuesday, is predicting who's going to have good target shares. Like that's the big question. This is end season data, right? Like this is how things concluded. And I can sit here and say, draft a pass catcher in the middle rounds who's going to see a 10% target share or better. And then you'll say, okay, well, which ones are going to see a 10% target share or better? And I'd say, I can give you an idea. Like Brian Robinson probably won't, right? We know that. We know that Ramondre Stevenson with Travion Henderson there, that's probably gonna be more difficult for him to reach that kind of mark. But at the same time, there is a data point. This is my teaser. There is a data point that can increase your odds pretty dramatically of finding the right pass catchers in the middle rounds. And that's what I'm going to talk about on Tuesday's show.
Look at you teasing. I just sent
Marketing.
a tease. Yeah,
Good
I
marketing.
sent a quote tweet on X and teased. And I said, I hate teasing like this. But we're about to talk year 2 value players, and a few names might surprise you.
A few of them might. A few of them won't, but a few of them.
Yeah. This one won't if you've listened to anything that you've had to say, JJ. It's Caleb Williams with the Chicago Bears.
Yeah. I mean, this one's pretty obvious as a year 2 breakout. You got Ben Johnson. I put in Tan, little shout out to Pittsburgh. Shout out to Pittsburgh and the Yinzers out there. Ben Johnson's now in Chicago. Second-year quarterbacks who are drafted in that QB7 to QB19 range. This is something I talked about this week on the year of the sophomore quarterback episode that I dropped. Second-year quarterbacks in that QB7 to QB19 range have been unreal from a hit rate perspective. Their average differential between how many points per game they actually score to how many points per game they're expected to score has been 2.32, which is the only bucket from an age perspective that actually is favorable. There might be one more, maybe year 4 that's like plus 0.4. It's the only one that's over half a point per game in expectation favorably for those players. So does that make sense what I'm saying there? You got to act as the folks in the audience. Yeah. So they're at plus 2.3 points per game on average versus expectation. 23% of them have exceeded ADP expectation by 4 more points per game. The next closest NFL season is year 4 at 8.3%. So second-year quarterbacks, the reason why this kind of thing happens is they're ambiguous still. We don't know if they're good or not. And they can go south, sure, but they also more frequently go north. And the reason why they would go north is because they're being drafted in that range. So the market is telling you there's a lot of hope for those players, right? This is where Lamar Jackson as a sophomore, Patrick Mahomes as a sophomore, they're massive breakout seasons. This is where they were drafted. Like you often see the big time second year jump happen from this group. And that's where Caleb Williams is sitting at right now. He had 2.8 points per game via rushing last year without a rushing touchdown. That's not anything above 2. I'm not as concerned with. If it was below 2, there are some pretty scary trends there. There's great weapons. There's an improved offensive line. I think it's obvious to go Caleb Williams' direction, and he's still very affordable on DraftKings right now.
Extremely affordable. My question is there anything to worry about with him? Because it really does seem like everything is going in his favor. Like maybe a new offensive system. I mean, I can't really think of anything too bad.
I think it can go bad because he wasn't good last year. Like, what if he's just not good? Like he did not put up good numbers last season. And, I mentioned this on a mailbag episode last week where someone was like, everyone's just saying good things about the Bears. And what if they're actually bad? What if they're bad? But it doesn't matter because we're not drafting them as if they're going to be excellent right now, right? Like DJ Moore may be a little bit inflated, but like Rome Odunze, wide receiver like 37, 38. Luther Burden, you can get past wide receiver 50. DeAndre Swift is affordable still. Roshan Johnson's still pretty much free. I mean, these guys are not going for, costs that tell me that the market is expecting them to blow up. They're going for costs that this is an up-and-coming offense that we probably should invest in redraft.
There you go. All right, let's get on to the next one. Geez, a lot of this. We got a lot of black here. There you go. Oh, we should have known why. Because it's one of your favorite guys to talk about this offseason.
That's right. Rome Odunze.
Rome Odunze.
Again, people still think that I'm like not an Odunze guy, and it's just not true. There's just instances where I think it's more than necessary and smart to trade him away in Dynasty. In redraft, this is the kind of wide receiver that I will draft, because if he doesn't work out, it's not going to sink my team. I do think that maybe you can make the argument that's a little bit different for best ball, but I wouldn't make that argument because I think in best ball, the allure with an offense like this is that you're not going to be able to guess which wide receivers are going to go off in a given week, similar to like Green Bay last year. But they will, if the offense does hit, they will have their weeks where they spike. Whereas in season long, you're going to have to take the valleys with the peaks potentially. But I also think there's the potential that Rome Odunze just becomes that dude, right? Now, look, I wrote about this in the year 2 profile in the prospect guide. He had pretty bad peripherals last year. There's a lot of stats that say we can kind of throw out that data. I'm not one that thinks that we can just throw out, a full season for a player unless you're going to do that for everyone who's been under really bad circumstances. And I don't think that's fair either. Like we can look at this and say Rome Odunze had poor peripherals and there were reasons why he had poor peripherals. And so we can't look at an Odunze situation the same way that we would look at, I don't know, Marvin Harrison Jr. or someone else. Like the situationally was clearly different. That's okay. But we can also say we don't see a lot of hits, like elite hits from wide receivers with this kind of profile. But I do think, and I'm going to go back to this, when it comes to redraft, I'm okay with like making more outlier narrative driven type moves when the cost is lower, because this is like a middle round pick. It's not that big of a deal. He looks a lot like DeAndre Hopkins and how Hopkins and what he did year 1. Look at their yards per route run as rookies. Hopkins 1.28, Odunze 1.18, points per game 8.9 to 8.5, first downs per route run 6% to 5.9%, yards per team pass attempt rank among rookie wide receivers with less than a 1.3 yards per route run. Hopkins is second, Odunze is first within that metric, which is a predictive metric. And that helped Odunze a little bit in the year 2 model. Year 1 competition, Hopkins had Andre Johnson, Hall of Famer. Odunze combined, Keenan Allen and DJ Moore would be a Hall of Famer, right? Like if you put them together,
like a hybrid.
Yeah. But obviously really good competition. So I'm going to embrace the ambiguity in redraft, and I'm going to be heavy on Odunze in redraft, whereas in Dynasty, I'm probably more like 60-40 towards the sell side in Dynasty. But in redraft, I'm like 80-20 go in and get them.
So you have embrace ambiguity right here.
Yeah, is that not the most like JJ phrase of all time?
Yes.
Yeah. Like,
yeah.
It really is. Really is.
All right. All right. Next player we have is.
Oh, shocker. Shocker. You can just listen to what I just said.
I want people to buy the draft guide. I want them to join the Patreon community because it's awesome. The Discord community is great. But if you just listen to every single episode that you put out and read every newsletter, you'd have a pretty good idea who some of the targets are.
Yeah, there's something we're about to talk about that I have not talked about at all this offseason, though.
Gosh, no, there's a tease.
Yeah. But Drake May, you could just look at what I said about Caleb Williams, second-year quarterback, same exact ADP range. I think Drake May right now is the best value at quarterback in all fantasy formats. Well, I shouldn't say that. Redraft and season long and best ball. And not Dynasty, it's a little bit different, but I still like him in Dynasty too. But you can get him very cheap in DraftKings on DraftKings, like below. Like I don't see the reason to draft Drake May after Jordan Love. Maybe that's stupid, but the upside is just there for May, whereas we kind of know what we're generally going to get with Love, and that is we will get an upside case for him if he has sort of an outlier season and touchdown rate, which I don't really want to bet on. I'd rather go after the guy who has the rushing upside that we, in the ascending offense or the hopeful ascending offense, and bring those guys with him. Now, I know that last year in best ball, one of my takes for this offense was Tennessee. That was one of those offenses that could have potentially been that. Drake May is objectively maybe 1,000, maybe 2,000 times better than Will Levis, something around there. and I trust the weapons a little bit more. They're not geriatrics at wide receiver and stuff. Like, it's just a different situation than last year, versus cost. So, someone will definitely bring up the Tennessee thing. And yes, I invested in Tennessee last year. And yes, I only got the Tony Pollard thing right out of that investment. Calvin Ridley had some spiked weeks though. When DeAndre Hopkins got traded, Ridley at least peaked and spiked at the right time, right? For fantasy purposes. But it wasn't a good season overall from a Tennessee standpoint.
And Ridley had some really, as a Tennessee fan also, and someone who was playing Ridley in a lot of DFS contests, he had the potential to blow up even more.
Yeah.
There was quite a few like pass interference penalties, and he just wasn't scoring touchdowns. Mm-hmm. Like if you had any sort of touchdowns onto like all the catches that he had and yards he had.
Yeah. A lot of unanswered air yards for Calvin Ridley.
Yeah.
But the Patriots offense looks like it improved pretty much everywhere. I like Kyle Williams. I've said that. Hunter Henry, I think, is solid. Hunter Henry is probably the easiest go-to at tight end for me in best ball, because he's going after like Mason Taylor and stuff. And like Hunter Henry's not going to be a tight end, like a high-end tight end one, or even probably a mid-range tight end one. He can squeak into low-end tight end one territory, and you're getting him at like tight end 24 or something right now over on DraftKings. But Drake May, good rushing profile, 4.2 points per game via rushing last year. A lot of rookies who have done and been in that range have been really good in fantasy throughout their careers. And New England is the team that has the 5th most improved touchdown per game rate based on the formula that I built a few weeks ago, looking at touchdowns per game the previous season to the next season. It takes inputs like offensive line ranking from PFF. It takes inputs like the quarterback ADP. It's kind of a fun formula that looks at projected touchdowns per game. New England's improvement year over year is 5th best. And I think that's underselling that a little bit too.
Okay. The next one we have Ricky Pearsall, cover boy.
Yeah. Another team that has a really good profile from the standpoint of improving their touchdowns per game rate. San Francisco is actually first on that list in terms of where they were last year in touchdowns per game and how they project this year in touchdowns per game. So I love the San Francisco offense. I've written about this as well, that I think they're a very stackable team in best ball. He had troubling year one numbers like Romadunze, but he was shot at the beginning of the year. So Romadunze, at least Ricky Pearsall can say I was shot, and Romadunze can't say that.
I should not laugh as hard as I did. You caught me off guard. I thought you would have just said just like he was working through, a shooting.
He was shot. I mean, that's the truth. He got shot on the street.
You acted like it was, just some.
He got shot.
Anyways, yes.
Ricky Pearsall was shot and almost lost his life. Right. And it wasn't like a Brian Robinson got shot in the butt kind of thing. Yeah. It was not to say that like getting shot in general is like a good, like, of course there's going to be recovery, but of course there's going to be recovery.
Try to avoid it. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I mean, thank God he was fine. And so, obviously we're going to see a little bit of growing pains with that, especially for a rookie where you're not getting any reps before the season and stuff and early on in the season. He did have a stretch last year where he ran across 3 games, he ran 63 routes without a single target, which is very bad. Like that is 0 yards per route run over that time. Maybe he had 1 target, but he had 0 yards during that time. But he did come through towards the end of the year. He had a couple of strong performances, 2 top 15 ones. There's no Deebo Samuel. Brandon Ayuk is injured. The 49ers, like I said, have that number 1 team to improve in touchdowns per game. I like Pearsall where he's going. I like the 49ers where they get drafted. So I'm going to call him out as a year 2 breakout.
That week 17 game.
I love it.
10 targets, 141 yards.
Oh, you're talking about this upcoming. I thought you were talking about against Chicago this upcoming.
Oh, game. Yeah, that too. But yeah, he had some monster games late where you could honestly, that's probably why his value is so high as far as ADP, or otherwise it would have tanked, but people, holding on to that hope.
Yeah.
All right. So let's get on to,
I don't remember which one. Oh, there we go. This is
the surprising one. When you said this, I was like, really?
I mean, look, you look at what Miami under Mike McDaniel has historically split the early down stuff. Last year, they really gave a lot of their receiving work to Devon Achane, and I still expect Achane to see a good amount of receiving work this year. But they're going to split the early down work to some degree. It's a really, this system, this offense is one that, number one, has been efficient throughout the NFL over the last half decade or so. And then also it's an offense where if you get these speedy guys who can, make one cut and just go, they have often been effective. Mostert was that kind of guy. Devon Achane can be that kind of guy. Jaylen Wright can be that kind of guy. There's no more Raheem Mostert. They added Alexander Mattison and Ollie Gordon. I didn't mind Ollie Gordon as a prospect, but, given the way they used Jaylen Wright last year, there's a possibility that that's the way that they're going to deploy, their rookies moving forward. And it's not like, and Devon Achane saw a big jump in usage too, from year 1 to year 2, under this, in this offense. So maybe they slow things down or slow play things with Ollie Gordon. I don't even know who's going to be the 3rd running back dressed on game day at this moment. So the guy who's safest would be Jaylen Wright. Last year, he led the Dolphins in yards after contact per attempt. Wright did, which is kind of surprising just given that Devon Achane had the year that he did. It wasn't as good on the ground, obviously, but still it's not a bad sign to have that yards after contact per attempt being as good as it was versus his teammates. The coach speak around Jaylen Wright has actually been pretty favorable. I think that this is a situation, at least from like a best ball standpoint, where I've gotten him so much in best ball. I mean, if you guys are using my rankings at this point, and you've uploaded them onto DraftKings, he is well above ADP over on DK right now, because there's the natural, he's going to get some work in this offense. Like he could hit 150 touches this year, but then there's also the upside of a Devon Achane injury. Then all of a sudden, Jaylen Wright is the clear 1A in that backfield, and you have someone who could be a top 24 running back pretty easily. So, maybe it's less of a redraft take because he's more like, this is the kind of player that you probably in a normal 12-team league are not going to feel super comfortable flexing each week. But I do think that he should be on your radar at the very least.
Yeah. I've been grabbing Ollie Gordon in the 20th round, but he's like a short yardage back, right? Like he's not going to be like the explosive guy that Jaylen Wright is. Like you said, Jaylen Wright, he had a chance last year, but it was a chance within an offense that was, like you said, a dumpster fire.
The other thing,
process too, was right if you took Jaylen.
Yeah, I see what you did there. I also think that it should be noted that like he's bigger than both Mostert and Devon Achane. Jaylen Wright is. So there's the possibility that they want to use him a little bit at the goal line too. I don't know if they'll trust Ollie Gordon as a rookie to be that guy, but like I like Ollie Gordon. I like him as a player. I just think Jaylen Wright's the better value.
This guy is free.
He is free. And I didn't like Adonai Mitchell as a prospect, really. If you guys listen to my prospecting stuff last year, I was not that big on Adonai Mitchell, but he's a 20th round pick in best ball. He doesn't get drafted sometimes, AD Mitchell. And the reason for that is obvious. He's in the Colts offense that we talked about earlier. You get Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones. You're not going to feel great about them. Probably going to be run-heavy quarterbacks and a run-heavy offense in general. And then also, Alec Pierce had a mini breakout last year. And so with Alec Pierce having that, you have your 3 wide receiver set with Josh Downs out of the slot, Alec Pierce, stretching the field, and Michael Pittman being kind of a possession guy on the outside at X. And you add Tyler Warren to the mix too. And so there's a lot of mouths to feed in an offense that is probably not going to be very efficient through the air. I get all of that, but I also think that he's a big play receiver, incredibly athletic. He had the 8th best open score according to ESPN's open score metric last year, which was shocking to me. Just looking at that. And I know a lot of other people have charted AD Mitchell and said that he got pretty good separation. It was just that the delivery of the football was not really there. What if Anthony Richardson improves a little bit or Daniel Jones improves a little bit and he has multiple outs of injuries to get a little bit more work, and maybe he just outplays Alec Pierce, who I don't think is like a special core or a special wide receiver per se. So look, he could be a 0, but there's at least a path, and he's a big play receiver too, which obviously can still be beneficial in a best ball environment and even a season-long environment.
Okay, I'm going to read off some names. This is from Nick Ercolano's, who we love.
Yeah.
This is from a tweet he sent out yesterday. These are some of the passing touchdown lines. Brock Purdy, Dak Prescott, Jordan Love, Tua, Matthew Stafford, Justin Herbert, CJ Stroud, Trevor Lawrence. This current quarterback that we're talking about here, his passing touchdown line is set at 25.5, which is higher than all those names I just mentioned.
Oh, I know who it is.
You talked about the year of the sophomore quarterback.
I know who it is. That I haven't talked about him on the show today. It's not Caleb. It's JJ McCarthy, right?
It's JJ McCarthy.
Yeah. Who's
also we're getting some big time steam on the training camp vids, the hype vids. Like, again, if you listen to your year of the sophomore quarterback, you would have heard this guy or last week's show, but I just want to give JJ some love.
Yeah, we should give JJ some love.
Yeah, we always want to give JJ some love.
That's right. Yeah, man, he obviously Kevin O'Connell's system is really, really conducive to quarterback scoring. They've been good over the last 3 years in total quarterback scoring. And that's with like a carousel of quarterbacks because Kirk Cousins was hurt at times. And then obviously, last year they had Sam Darnold and him coming back from the dead and becoming a reasonable quarterback option. And their fantasy points per dropback numbers have been above average, above the NFL average in 2 of 3 years for Kevin O'Connell. And that is predictive, for some of these later round quarterbacks. So I think JJ McCarthy has more rushing juice than people give him credit for. Like he was not a 0 as a rusher at all in college. So you bring that all together, I could see a scenario where JJ McCarthy, is also a breakout this year. It's a little bit more difficult to put him in like the Drake May bucket because we've seen Drake May do what he did last year. And so, I think that the ADP of those two are going to merge and get closer and closer to one another probably as the season goes on. But yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised by that's the other thing with Kevin O'Connell in Minnesota, so this is something that generally regresses, but it hasn't really for them, the way that teams score touchdowns. And what I mean by that is, you either score a rushing touchdown or a passing touchdown, and they skew towards the pass consistently. Like it's not usually that kind of fluctuates and goes up and down and stuff. They are consistently tops in the league in passing touchdown rate, like how often their touchdowns are through the air. So that's probably why those numbers also exist for JJ McCarthy and his touchdown prop and the weapons that they have.
Okay. The goodbye. I'm going to put right here. This is what I wanted to say. My biggest fear, and I talked to you about this year. It's not drafting a certain player. Do you remember who that player was?
No. Derrick Henry? Just kidding. Oh, yeah, Saquon. Yeah.
All right. This guy, I'm going to put Kitchen just so people don't have this. This guy on the cover of Madden just crushed everything in best ball drafts, which is like, we're not doing any drafts that are non-best ball right now. Correct.
Right.
And we just did like our dynasty draft. You might have like a startup draft, but no one's drafting like the redraft league. If you are drafting your redraft league right now on June 5th, it's not best ball.
Switch your league.
Seek help.
Yes.
Yes. And switch your league. But not drafting Saquon. I'm just immediately passing him over for Justin Jefferson, the guy we just talked about.
Yeah. I have Justin Jefferson over Saquon in best ball and over on DK. Yeah.
Yeah. So how does that translate for you in redraft compared to best ball?
I don't know what my rankings say, but I think in redraft I'll have Saquon ahead. Just because of the predictability of running back and like having that player is really impactful and helpful. I think my Saquon, like I'm not drafting as much of him because of the Justin Jefferson, and I'm scared also. And I also am not getting as much Jonathan Taylor as I probably should. Would be the other guy. There's some trends that point to that in the draft guide, but he's also one of the players that can.
He's falling,
right? And I've actually drafted him more because of that in some of my drafts. But he's one of those players that's like Derrick Henry, where he can just buck some of those receiving trends pretty easily. You know, like we saw it down the stretch even last year. So I'm not going to full fade, and I'm not even going to probably have him as like a player to avoid per se. I think there's better candidates out there, but he's one that has been a little bit fearful for me.
Yeah. It's just like the Derrick Henry thing was kind of like last year. Like I missed out on generational wealth because like last year was the year I was like, I can't draft.
And last year was the year that I was in on Derrick Henry.
I know.
Man.
All right.
I've come to the conclusion though with Henry where it's just like, I'm going to try my best to just be, at that 8.3% number, even in season long. Just give me normal odds for Derrick Henry in terms of exposure, and then that way I don't have to sweat either way. I'm just good to go.
Okay, our good buddy Scott Fish released his Scott Fishbowl 15. Can't believe we're up to 15 years with Scott Fishbowl.
Yeah, I can't remember. I think my first was like 4.
Yeah. Like I have shirts from years ago that they have shrunk because I try to put them on now, and
they're what they've done. Yeah,
yeah, they're way too small for me. I have actually not even looked. This is a first look at the scoring. Have you looked at it?
Not in that much detail, so it's kind of my first look to a degree.
Yeah. So it is 6 points for all touchdowns. 2 points for 2-point conversions. 0.04, so 1 point every 25 yards passing.
It should be 0.1 instead of 0.01.
For rushing and receiving, it should be. Yeah.
All right.
Scott, please. We know that you don't have anything going on right now. Fix it. JJ's mad. The graphics not correct. All right. 1 point per first down. I always like the point per first down.
I don't. I'm not a big fan of it. I'm serious.
But why?
Because it's a more
because my metrics can't account for first downs.
No, you can actually, because there's going to be correlation between targets and yards to first downs, and so you can just convert your projection for targets and yards and get some first down projections. But like, it just to me adds more variance to a game that has a lot of variance. That's my beef with it.
Okay, tight ends get 1 extra point per reception, which I like. And then he says volume is king, 0.5 point per carry. Just think of like Derrick Henry getting 30 carries.
Okay, yeah.
1 point per target on MFL, 1 point per reception on MFL, and 2.5 points per reception on Sleeper, which is interesting.
Yeah. So I'm assuming, so he's looking at a targets per, a catch rate essentially format, I don't like, saying what a target would be worth. It's 2.5 to 2 basically here, right? Because they would be catching the ball. So MFL, if they're targeted and they catch it, that's 2 points.
Yeah.
But on Sleeper, it's 2.5. I'd have to do the math, but it sounds like the 2, or no, because it would be a target would be, I don't know. I have to do the math. Usually Scott though does it in a way where he's done that math.
Yes, correct. And he's been tinkering with it, because I saw him say the other night, like, should I just leave this alone? Because he kept on tinkering with it.
I mean, look, this is a like absurd, like if you're like, there is a distinction between Sleeper and MFL here and the kind of player that you're going to draft. Like MFL, you're going to want more of the probably Calvin Ridley types, let's say, or he's more okay. Whereas on Sleeper, you're just going to get the low A dot guys that, will catch a lot of balls.
But 2.5 points per reception is crazy. Yes, it is a super flex with 9 flex spots.
Yeah, that's pretty standard for SFB at this point, though.
Yes, but you have to have.
Yeah,
like
there's some
end.
You gotta have. Yeah, this will make it a lot easier for folks who build projections, because you can just draft off of the projections straight up.
Because he's got IDP, and it says Travis Hunter, because, and this is what J-Max said. I'm not a fan of the IDP scoring. Honestly, I'm not an IDP guy either.
It's just for Travis Hunter.
This is for Travis Hunter. Where an interception.
I don't know. It's going to, like, there's going to be someone who takes Travis Hunter first overall.
Yeah. Let them. Don't, like, it. Are we going to get into any IDP? Like, do you have to?
Do I have to analyze IDP as?
Okay. I see what this is.
It's just for Travis Hunter.
You're not drafting defensive players. Okay. When I saw IDP scoring, I was just like,
this is only for if you draft Travis Hunter, which inevitably means that people are going to just draft Travis Hunter 101 because it's fun.
Yeah. Okay. There you go. I don't have a problem with that then. So yeah. Let's see what happens. But SFB 15, we might talk to Scott. We might give away a SFB spot on this show, or to our Patreon guest, or both.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That's fun.
I could get that. All right. Make sure you subscribe, like, comment to our YouTube channel. The YouTube, the numbers have been going up, so it's good.
Please help though.
Yeah, I would like to get to 10K sooner than later.
We did say on the show last week how you guys interacting with these videos and you guys bumping up our numbers and stuff. I know it sounds like we're just trying to like sell ourselves, but it's literally so that it gives us reason, like more justification, I should say, to be able to invest more in doing this kind of thing. So if you guys can comment, and whether good or bad, you can talk about my blue hat if you want to, and how you hate it.
Don't you dare.
And how you
if
hate
someone
it.
So help me, if anyone talks bad about your blue hats, I will come unhinged.
Do whatever you want in the comments. Just comment.
There you go.
That's what's important.
We got to figure out something for our merch too. I told you I played pickleball yesterday in a late round shirt, and I was being choked around the neck by that bad boy.
That is my kind of tee, guys. I like thick, good necks. I don't want the you don't need to see chest hair. Like you don't
like the thin, soft shirts.
Thin V-necks are my worst nightmare.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we don't need anything. We're never gonna
sell your shirts like you like your data, just thick.
Why do you think I wear Dickies tees every day of my life? They're thick and reliable. That's how I like it.
All right. Last week was down and nerdy. This week it's
thick and reliable.
Thick and reliable.
That's right. That's right.
Newsletter. Again, JJ sent out a Stacks email on Tuesday. We got the other newsletter dropping tomorrow. I'll copy the sheet and paste it in there, and then follow us on X. And again, shout out to DraftKings. So you get the DK draft one, get one. Check the comments for that. So I would just say if you have any requests for late round merch, leave it in the chat or leave it in the comments as well.
Yeah,
and we'll see what we get.
Yeah.
So I want a dad hat. That's what I want. Dad hat and dry fit.
I do have a hat that didn't fit me because my head's so big, but my wife wears it now.
Okay, we'll get you an extra large hat. You know, like the one size fits most. You don't fall in the most category.
Yeah. I wear if you know, like the regular sizes that like the, you know, flat brims will have or whatever.
Yeah.
I have a size 8 head. It's big. It's a very big head.
It's a thick head. You got
thick and reliable head. That's
All right. With that being said, JJ, do you have any closing thoughts?
No, I don't. But
okay.
You know, go and leave comments and like the page.
Yeah, we appreciate everyone. These shows are fun. You know, it's fun. Apologies for not having the correct overlay at first, but we got it sorted out. And
you kept your job.
That's right. Here though, we'll be back here next week for another topic. If you have anything that you want some research done on, feel free to leave that in the comments. That doesn't mean we'll do it, but you're always welcome to leave like just, hey, we might say, hey, yeah, this sounds like a great topic. So with that being said, he's JJ. I'm David. We'll see you next time here in the Late Round Fantasy Football Show. Thanks for tuning in.